Welcome to SR Plus. I am your host and these are your competitors. Left ear up, go.
Chips. Book. Water. Good job.
That's reinforcement. Left, you go.
Hugs.
And that's reinforcement. Right, go.
Money. Tokens. M&Ms.
That's reinforcement in the end of round one.
Hi, it's Mike with Behavioral Comedy, and today I'm going to talk to you about contingencies. This is going to be reinforcement or punishment during our operant conditioning. When you see the four-term contingency, it's going to be that last term in that four-term contingency. It's going to be abbreviated with an S because it is a stimulus change that follows our response, and then you're either going to have an R or a P raised up afterwards to either signal if it's reinforcement or if it's punishment, followed by a plus or minus, letting you know whether that's positive reinforcement or negative reinforcement. One of the most misunderstood terms, or not even sure what you want to call it, concepts in all of psychology is negative reinforcement. I remember during my undergrad, I didn't even know what behaviorism was. But I realized after my third semester, every single psychology class I had brought up the difference between positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. And I remember on that third try, I was like, I still don't get it. And I'm going to dedicate myself to understand what negative reinforcement is. And then from that point forward, I had it. And it also showed up in every single psychology class ever. And that was just kind of a signal to me that this is important, whether I'm taking personality psychology, abnormal psychology, Psych 101, IO psychology, all of those psychology classes that I took in my undergrad, we always talked about the difference between positive and negative reinforcement. And time again, my classmates just didn't get it. I didn't at first until I sat there and I was like, I'm going to understand this, I'm going to get it. So today what we're going to do is we're going to break down positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, positive punishment, and negative punishment. And all of these are contingencies. Before we hop into each one on their own, I just want to point out, and I'm going to keep saying this over and over again, in psychology, things are called by what they do or someone's last name. Reinforcement and punishment are called by what they do. So if we have an increase in behavior, we're going to call that reinforcement. Reinforcement means to make stronger. And what we're doing is in that learner, in whoever's behavior or whatever organism's behavior is being reinforced, that behavior is now stronger in their overall repertoire, and it is more likely or more probable to occur in the future under similar conditions where reinforcement occurred. So anytime you strengthen a behavior, it's reinforcement, and so it's going to increase the likelihood of that behavior occurring again. Punishment is the exact opposite. It is going to decrease the likelihood of those same behaviors occurring again under similar conditions. If you think about everyday life, how do we use punishment? Oh, when a parent spanks a child or grounds a child or puts that child on a restriction, or if you go to jail or if you pay fines. And all of those are an attempt to decrease those behaviors from occurring again. So anytime a behavior that we are targeting is trying to be increased, or anytime a behavior is increased, it's going to be reinforcement. Anytime that behavior is decreased, it's going to be punishment. How do we get to positive versus negative, either one of those? If we add something to the environment, a behavior occurs, something is added, and now the likelihood or the probability of that behavior occurring again, we're going to call that positive reinforcement. It's positive because we added something. It increases the behavior, so it's reinforcement. So we have S, R, plus. If we are increasing the likelihood of that behavior to happen again, but we are taking something away or we are subtracting something from the environment, that's going to be negative reinforcement, or S R minus. If we are doing the same thing with punishment, so if we add something to the environment and in doing so, it decreases the likelihood of that behavior that occurred prior to the stimulus change, then it is going to be positive punishment, and that's going to be an SP plus. And so if we then remove something from the environment following a behavior, and now that behavior is less likely or less probable to occur in that individual's repertoire under the same environmental conditions, we have negative punishment, and that is going to be SP minus. So plus means to add, minus means to subtract. Reinforce means to strengthen, and punishment means to unstrengthen or decrease. Positive reinforcement. It's very powerful. If you're working in the applied behavior analysis field, it's something that you probably try to use all the time. In fact, if you want to use punishment, you have to try reinforcement first. It's one of our ethical guidelines. So what is positive reinforcement? Well, that is going to be a stimulus change that follows our targeted behavior, where that stimulus change is something being added to the environment. And after that behavior, something is added, and due to that, in the future, that same behavior under similar environmental conditions is more likely to occur or is more probable to occur. And so also, baseline is very important. When you're thinking about reinforcement or punishment, it might not be that the behavior increases, it's that it increases above baseline levels. So that's the important part. When I was a student, that really tricked me up. And I was like, well, we're already reading or typing at 100 words per minute. Here's what we're calling a positive reinforcer to increase the likelihood of that behavior occurring again. It occurs more than it does during baseline. We have a positive reinforcer. So just because the behavior doesn't become at a higher rate or is not emitted at a higher rate does not mean it's not reinforcement. It just means that it's maintained above baseline levels. So what are some examples of positive reinforcement? Honestly, reinforcement, punishment, it's all idiosyncratic, meaning it just matters to that individual who I'm going to call our learner, the person that's learning in this environment. Whoever's behaviors are under measurement and whatever contingencies we are monitoring following that behavior. So that's going to be our learner. So what are some examples of reinforcement? It's going to be anything that could be added following a behavior that increases the likelihood of that behavior. So something that reinforces one individual may not reinforce another individual. Something we all think about: money, food, water. Oh, those are universal reinforcers, correct? No, it really matters upon that learner. And only after doing a reinforcer assessment can we actually tell if something served as a reinforcer or not. Just because it's quote unquote preferred, or just because the individual or our learner likes it, does not mean that it'll serve as a reinforcer. So there also might be things that you would assume would serve as a punisher, but it doesn't. So if a child is yelled at after burping, and now they continue to burp under those same conditions, or they burp more frequently, meaning a count per time, not a count only, I'm using it as rate. If they burp more frequently due to being yelled at, that being yelled at is a reinforcer. Was something added or was something removed? Something was added. So we have a positive reinforcer. And that's really it in a nutshell. In the field, a lot of times it could be a high five. It could be being told good job. It could be a skittle. It could be access to the iPad. It could be attention. It can be so many things. The only thing you need to know to find out if something is a positive reinforcer is, was something added, yes or no? If added, it's positive. Did that behavior go up or down in frequency? It went up in frequency, so now we have a positive reinforcer. The stimulus change itself does not matter. Only thing that matters is the effect on behavior.
Let's meet our guest. You are on the left,
Yes,
and you are on the right.
I am.
Round 2, start.
I'll take Mike and Ike's, licorice, and trampoline.
That's reinforcement.
YouTube tickles.
That's reinforcement.
Bike ride, attention, chips.
That's reinforcement. You love those chips. That ends round 2 and brings us to our final round, where the temporal locus matters.
As I stated in the intro, negative reinforcement is one of the most difficult terms or processes for someone to understand when they're first getting into the field. It took me 3 semesters into my undergrad psychology degree before I really grasped what negative reinforcement is. So with all reinforcement, it's a stimulus change that follows a behavior that increases the likelihood of that behavior to happen again. With negative reinforcement, that stimulus change is going to be something going away. So the example that I gave myself at the beginning that I always used anytime I heard negative reinforcement was nagging. And I just thought of my mom going, did you clean your room yet? Did you clean your room? Did you clean your room? Did you clean your room? You clean your room, the behavior, the nagging goes away. It wasn't added, it's taken away. Now my mom no longer nags because my room is clean. And now in the future, I am more likely to clean my room because of that whole process. That's negative reinforcement. An alarm clock. You now turn off that alarm clock and you wake up. You're more likely in the future to wake up when you hear that and it's because you remove that after the behavior of waking up occurs. So negative reinforcement. You have a behavior that is our targeted behavior. After that behavior occurs, there is something in the environment that is taken away. And now in the future, that behavior is more likely to occur. So some examples of negative reinforcement could be the nagging from a parent or caregiver, could be an alarm, it could be scratching an itch. You engage in the behavior of scratching. Now the itch goes away, and in the future, you're more likely to scratch an itch again. Why are you more likely? Because in the past, scratching got rid of the itch. So basically, there are going to be adversives in your environment. Things that you as an individual, you don't really like. So those things go away because of some behavior that you did. And now in the future, when you're under the same condition, when I have an itch again, when my room is dirty, when it's time to get up and the alarm is beeping, I am more likely to engage in those behaviors because in the past, it got rid of that aversive. Whatever I did not like, it is gone. So that's negative reinforcement. And there's not universal negative reinforcements. Some people might not mind the beeping of an alarm clock, and it's not going to work. Removing that from the environment is not a reinforcer, and now the behavior does not occur. And that's a problem I've had with some of my students. And then you have to do things like put the alarm clock across the room. And now standing up and walking across the room, you know, gets you to wake up, or you got to have a light that flashes in your eyes, and you want to stop that light from flashing in your eyes. So you wake up and you turn off the flashing light. You now are more likely to get up and turn off that flashing light, because the consequence of doing that is the light's no longer flashing in your eyes. So positive punishment is going to be a consequence following a behavior where something is added to the environment, and now the likelihood of that behavior to happen again under these environmental conditions is less likely. With reinforcement, it's very idiosyncratic, meaning it varies from person to person. So anytime you add something to the environment, and now this behavior no longer occurs or occurs at a lower rate, we have positive punishment. It could be anything. It could be if you come up to me and say hello, and I give you $10. What was the stimulus change following hello? Something was added. Now maybe in the future, you're less likely to tell me hello. That was positive punishment. And like reinforcement, to understand if something truly is a punisher or not, you have to do an assessment. You have to find a baseline rate of behavior, then add something following that behavior, and see there be a decrease in the probability of that behavior occurring again. If you do that, you have a positive punisher. It could be additional math questions, it could be additional chores, it could be money, it could be high fives. I've even worked with an individual where they were less likely to engage in behavior if following that behavior you gave them a compliment. And I did not, it didn't make any sense until I looked at the data. And I was like, I started giving praise following these behaviors, and now these behaviors are less likely to occur. It was a higher functioning individual. I got to ask, hey, what's going on? And they said, I hate when you tell me good job. Me adding something to the environment, saying good job, decreased the likelihood of those behaviors occurring. And it was anything. It could be completing chores, completing homework, completing anything. So they no longer, or at least in the presence of me, they no longer engaged in these behaviors because I said good job following them. I added something to the environment, and it decreased their likelihood of engaging in those behaviors. And that's all punishment is. You know, you might try to think, oh, I'm going to try to do something mean, or I'm going to try to do something that they don't like. It doesn't have to be something that they don't like. It just has to be anything that decreases the future likelihood of those behaviors to occur again. And again, it's positive, so you added something. I gave you money for cleaning your room, and now you no longer clean your room. Positive punishment. I gave you praise after you completed a math worksheet. You no longer complete math worksheets. Positive punishment. I gave you extra chores to do after you cleaned your room. You no longer clean your room. Positive punishment.
Let's play the locust round. Right? You start.
Soda. Cheetos. Skittles. 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 Skittles.
And that's reinforcement. Thank you for playing. Good night.
By this time, you should be able to kind of put together the terms and determine what negative punishment is. It's negative, so you know something is being removed from the environment. It's punishment, so you know that the future likelihood of that behavior to occur again under these conditions is not likely, or the probability has been reduced. So negative reinforcement is just following a behavior, something is removed, and in the future, that behavior is less likely to happen again. With all punishment, with all reinforcement, it's very idiosyncratic, meaning it's learner specific. Only to this learner could this be a reinforcer. It may be a reinforcer to most humans, most organisms, but you don't know until you do an assessment. So you can create anything to be an example. So here's a common one. You get caught speeding by a police officer. The police officer gives you a fine, i.e. takes away your money. Now you're less likely to speed in the future. What happened? You sped. What was the consequential change? Money was taken away, and now you're less likely to speed again. Timeouts are supposed to be like that. Jail is supposed to be like that. I got caught committing a crime, so I got put in jail. Everything was taken away. My home was taken away. My family was taken away. Your freedom was taken away. And the goal for that is, in the future, you're less likely to engage in those behaviors again. I'm not going to get into it. It's for a different video. But you got to look at the immediacy of the stimulus change to the behavior. And courts tend to take a long time. But that's the goal if you think about it. You're taking something away, and now those behaviors are less likely to occur. It could be, I know something that happened in my family. Me and my brother started to argue. My dad took away the Nintendo. Me and my brother started to fight. He took away our privileges. Something was taken out of my environment, and now I'm less likely to fight with my brother. I'm less likely to argue with my brother. So it could be anything. It could be taking your door off of the bedroom. I remember someone told me that happened in high school. They said their dad took the door off their bedroom. As long as whatever behavior occurred prior to that door being removed decreased in the future probability of happening, then it's a negative punisher. So again, I feel like I'm being very repetitive here, but there are no universal punishers, universal reinforcers. Water is going to be a reinforcer, 99% of the time? I don't know what the probability is. But after you've drank so much water, you might make someone drink water, and then that serves as a punisher, so they're less likely to engage in that behavior again due to the water being presented, positive punisher. Or you might remove, let's say you have a splinter and it really hurts. You say, hey, ow, I have a splinter. Someone removes that splinter. And now in the future, you're less likely to say, ow, I have a splinter. That was negative punishment. Something was removed, that splinter, and now the probability of engaging in that behavior, ow, I have a splinter, has decreased. It really doesn't matter. You can't just look at a stimulus change and tell if it's positive. You can tell if it's positive or negative, but you can't look at a stimulus change and tell if it's a reinforcer or punisher. Not until that behavior either goes up or down in frequency. You can tell if it's positive or negative because you just look, was something added or was something removed? In conclusion, if you want to find out if something is a reinforcer or punisher, you look at the targeted behavior. What is the targeted behavior? Cleaning your room. Do we want there to be more room cleaning, or do we want there to be less room cleaning? If we want there to be more room cleaning, we're going to try to have a stimulus change that's reinforcing. And then you run an assessment, you monitor to see, does that behavior actually occur again? Or did we just do something that was inconsequential? If cleaning room behavior goes up, whatever happened is a reinforcer. If cleaning behavior goes down, whatever happened is a punisher. How do we tell if it's positive? How do we tell if it's negative? Did you add something to the environment, or did you take something away from the environment? And that's pretty much all you do. I remember someone calling me up before and they're like, I'm having a really hard time deciphering if this is reinforcement or punishment. And I go, keep it simple. Parsimony. Parsimony is one of the greatest skills you can have. Is the behavior going up? Or is the behavior going down? First question you got to ask. Well, the behavior went down, then it's punishment. Well, you didn't know what the stimulus change was. If the behavior goes down, it's punishment. Well, the behavior went up, then it's reinforcement. Oh, but we want peeing in pants to go down, but it went up. Then whatever you did is a reinforcer. Well, we want using the toilet to go up, but it went down. Then whatever you did was a punisher. And you then look what happened following that behavior. Was something added? Was there praise? Was there edibles? Was there attention? Or was something removed? Were you ignored? Were you left alone? Did someone remove toys? Did they remove chores? That's all you do. You just look. Behavior goes up, reinforcement. Behavior goes down, punishment. Something was added, positive. Something was removed, negative. And then you look at those, you monitor it, and you find out what happens. Well, that's it. I hope this made sense. I feel like it's really complex, that when you get it, you're like, oh, that's it? It's kind of like a little kid learning math, because that's all you're doing. You're learning, is it plus, is it minus? You learn addition. At first you're like, this is really hard. And then you get it, and you're like, oh, that's actually pretty simple. But you gotta get it, and it's not easy to get it. But once you get it, it should be boom. And then anytime you're in the field, anytime you're reading example, you just go through those steps. Step 1, what's our targeted behavior? Step 2, did the frequency of that behavior go up, or did the frequency of that behavior go down? Step 3, was something added, or was something removed? You answer those 3 questions, and you will know if you have positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, negative punishment, positive punishment. Follow those steps, and it'll guide you to the right answer. So I hope this has been informative. Something didn't make sense. I said something wrong. You want to hear more? You like stuff? You don't like stuff? Let me know. You can comment. You can share. Hit all the buttons. There's buttons everywhere. You can hit all the buttons. Do all those things. Help me out. I appreciate it, and I hope you all stay safe.